For months now, I've been repeatedly saying that the work of discipling and evangelizing children begins not with the youth pastor, but with the Christian home. Scripture places the primary stewardship of teaching, training, and instructing children on fathers and mothers. The church exists not to replace parental discipleship, but to support it. Our philosophy has been consistent. We are a partnership ministry, not a replacement ministry. But that emphasis sometimes leaves people with the mistaken impression that the biological family is somehow more fundamental or more spiritually decisive than the family of God, or vice versa, the family of God is somehow more fundamental or more spiritually decisive than earthly families. And Scripture will not let us make such a divide. Our deepest identity as believers is not, first of all, that we are children of an earthly father, but that we are the children of God. Many believers have come to Christ from unbelieving homes, and the church became their true spiritual family long before anything changed at home. So when we say parents carry the first responsibility for shaping the children, we are not meaning that Christian families replace the church or the church replaces the Christian family. We mean simply that parents disciple their children as members of the church family, not in place of it as we partner together. Now, that brings us to an important question, one that has been submitted for Ask the Pastor today. If family discipleship is primary, and it is, what then is the role of youth ministry? My answer is simple. Scripture itself teaches that childhood is a distinct age of understanding, and that the people of God have always discipled children in age-appropriate ways. Youth ministry done well is nothing more and nothing less than the church honoring the biblical pattern and teaching of age-specific discipleship rooted deeply in Scripture. From the time of the prophets, God's people recognized that children understand at a child's level, not at an adult's level, and they built their worship gatherings around that reality. When Ezra gathered the assembly in Nehemiah chapter 8, the text clearly says that he brought together the men, the women, and all who could understand. Not all children, not all infants, not all toddlers, but children old enough to grasp the word at their level were there as it was read. The same pattern appeared under King Josiah when the book of the law was read before all the people, both great and small. Childhood was recognized, it was dignified, it was addressed with intentionality. When God gave instructions to parents of Israel and how they would teach their children the Passover instructions assumed that as children grow, their understanding grew with them. And so the Bible tells them in Exodus 12, verse 26, "When your children ask you, 'What does this service mean?' then you shall say." God built developmental discipleship into the very fabric of Israel's worship. And we dare not overlook Paul's words in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. In 1 Corinthians 13, verse 11, Paul says, "When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child." Often we rush so quickly to the final clause, which says, "But when I became a man, I put away childish things." There's an obvious application there. Paul is saying adults shouldn't act like children. But there's also something we miss if we skip just to that application, which is so obvious. Here's something else obvious in this verse. God does not rebuke children for thinking like children, or speaking like children, or reasoning like children. That is not immaturity necessarily to be shamed. It is childhood to be shepherded. Youth ministry is simply the church acknowledging this biblical truth. It is, in fact, if we were to go to youth group level, youth groups are the last leg of children's ministry. We are receiving them at 12 in youth group, and we send them out at 18. They are still children. They're growing, they're stretching, they're struggling, they're maturing, but they're not yet adults. To expect them to process Scripture exactly as adults does not align with biblical fidelity. It is a denial of the way God made people. It's a denial of clear anthropology. It's a denial of clear exhortation and example that we have in Scripture, that children are children and adults are adults. And this is where some modern movements, especially within Reformed family-integrated circles, unintentionally go astray. Their model often grows out of a covenantal theology, which assumes children are already members of the covenant and therefore should participate in worship as if spiritually equal with adults. But we're not in that circle. This is a Baptist church that I pastor. And Baptists who believe children believe children must personally confess and come to faith, and cannot build their discipleship model on assumptions drawn from another theological tradition. Our children do not need to be presumed that they are regenerate. They need to be evangelized and instructed and exhorted and shepherded in age-appropriate ways that they would understand and come to a full salvation knowledge and grow in their sanctification as they think as a child and understand as a child and behave as a child, that one day they would act as grown-ups. The testimony of history supports this. The greatest preachers of history understood what I'm trying to tell you today. Charles Spurgeon said this. Charles Spurgeon said to those he was training in his lectures to his students, "Begin early to teach, for children begin early to sin." But Spurgeon also warned to never say, "They are only children," for in his words, in their earliest days, they are heirs of heaven. Therefore, said Spurgeon, act and teach children as if they are children. He was making it very clear. They're kids. Let them be kids. J.C. Ryle urged parents the same way when he urged parents to train their children according to their age and capacity. John Wesley insisted that we must instruct children at the level in which they can receive it. Richard Baxter said pastors must suit our teaching to the capacity of the hearer. Milk for babes, stronger meat for men. These men of old saw what Scripture itself showed. Children are not adults, and discipleship must attend to that reality. So why a youth ministry? Why do we need a youth ministry? Well, a youth ministry done well really matters. When youth ministry functions biblically, it becomes a powerful tool in the hands of God. Students who inevitably listen to voices beyond their parents gain additional godly voices, reinforcing truths that they should be learning at home. They learn to minister the gospel to their peers. They experience mutual encouragement from other believers walking through similar temptations. They grow into young men and women who serve the wider church. And they often reach unbelieving friends who might never set foot in a worship service, but will gladly attend a youth group. But let me be clear about this. This does not mean we turn youth ministry into an amusement park. Yet nor does it mean stripping away joy and fun in youth group. Scripture indicates that children speak, think, and reason like children, and that is not sinful. Therefore, it is entirely appropriate for the youth ministry to include activities, laughter, and frankly, just good Christian fun. To forbid such things in the name of seriousness is not exegesis, it is overcorrection. Churches that treat youth ministry as optional or peripheral often end up raising what one writer called professional daydreamers, kids present in the body but never engaged in spirit. So what is our goal? Why have a youth ministry? Why have a youth group? Our goal is not entertainment. Our goal is not mere social gathering. Our goal is not to create a separate world for teens, nor to segregate them from the church. None of those are our goal. Our goal is this: to raise young men and women who love Christ, love His Word, love His church, and step into adulthood prepared to serve and follow Jesus for a lifetime. That's our goal. We are not trying to replace the home. We are not trying to replace the church. We are trying to help both in their partnership role. In the words of D.L. Moody, "If I could relive my life," Moody said, "I would devote my entire ministry to reaching children for God." That is not sentimentalism. That is strategy. That is biblical. That is wise. Youth ministry matters because young souls matter. And as long as God entrusts them to us, we will teach them, shepherd them, encourage them, challenge them, laugh with them, and lead them until childish things are laid aside and mature, faithful disciple stands in their place, ready to serve His great God. Youth ministry matters. I hope you see why.